All right, we're back, episode 90 something. I'm not sure which one it is, but
it might be 100. We don't know.
Listen, I've seen you more this month than I've probably seen you in the last 3 years. So welcome back, Brian Shaw.
I appreciate it, man. It's good to be back.
You were doing my little, like, you worked with me of carrying me to the gala at the Olympia, making sure that we didn't get harassed too much, right? It was like
I don't know if I did a good job.
Pitcher for Brian, pitcher for Jay, pitcher for Brian, pitcher for Jay.
It was like, hurry up, go here. Yeah. It was interesting, man.
I was really disappointed. I just talked about this. I don't know if it was on the Milos podcast, but I said, man, I wanted a pose down with you and Shaq.
See, I said on the stage, I said it.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know. I don't know if he wants that, man, but
he doesn't want
it would be fun. It would be fun.
He doesn't want that smoke.
Oh, I know. We called him out in the video. We did, the wrap-up video.
Yeah.
But, man, it's great to see you, man. You're back in Vegas, and it's good to see you. Little different this time. I mean, last time we were talking, you were heading into your final. I don't even know if we announced that, did we?
No, it wasn't his final yet.
Was it two years ago?
Okay.
So to the date, this is 2 years ago to the date.
Yeah. So this was my last year of competing in strongman. So
well, I think you were a little uncertain. You were like taking it as it comes, and you just finished up. And can we officially say now that you're retired from competition?
Retired officially, yeah. So I announced that this year going in.
Okay.
I kind of called that and just said it to everybody, like this is going to be the last one. And so I finished up actually at the contest I promote, which is the strongest man on earth at the Shaw Classic, and it was awesome, man. I couldn't have asked for a better.
And you crushed it.
It was great, yeah. It was. I mean, it was just this weekend where things were kind of surreal, like the energy was so good, and I think every competitor thinks about maybe walking out where they're holding the trophy and they get that moment and they get to have their send off, and it's kind of something I definitely tried to envision going in, but the way that it played out, it couldn't have played out any better. It really couldn't have. I mean, we finished with this event called the power stairs, where we take the weight between our legs and take it up the stairs, and then you finish at the top. So you're 10 feet in the air, up almost kind of like a platform, like a stage in a way, right? And so I finished on top of that, and then we had Matt Eisman doing the MC stuff on the floor, and he brought the microphone over, and I didn't know that was going to happen, but he's like, hey, man, why don't you say a few things? And so I'm like, well,
perfect time.
Yeah. So I'm standing up on, there's some really cool pictures. Like I'm standing on top of the power stairs and kind of giving my send off, and all the guys that competed with me walked out from, the backstage area and were there. And it was crazy. Like it was, just such a good send off. It was, a lot of emotion there and everything, but having that moment, I think was huge, because I wanted to walk away, and I'm sure we can talk more about this, but I wanted to walk away where I was still very capable. I was still at the top, and I wasn't one of these guys that held on too long and tried to just prolong their career for no reason other than just be like, I'm going to compete more and try to hold on to whatever. Like I wanted to walk out, knock on wood, I feel good, body feels good. I don't have the nagging injuries and this type of stuff. And I got to have a long career, man. Really, really good. So
way longer than you expected, right?
Well, most guys coming in told me you get about 10 years.
I know they say the same about bodybuilding, right? If you even last 10.
Yeah. And 10 at the top, right? So I got to, like, in total was just under 20 years, 19 years that I competed in strongman. So it's, it's nice to be able to walk away not being beat up so badly now where I can't do other things and I can't be happy and, that type of thing. So, who knows how much wear and tear is really there, but I think it's a byproduct of smart training and recovery work and, trying to be on top of the diet, like, a lot of those things and just listening to the body, like I know,
but looking at you, I mean, it still looks like you're in form too. I mean, you probably still haven't fallen much off the routine. Scaling back, I'm sure, like, we talked about the food, the crazy food. I mean, we both had that in our careers, but
big time, yeah.
How has the transition been? So the day you stop, okay, and your mindset is off competition, how is that adjustment now? Is it more family time? Is it less training? Is it less eating? Or is it still kind of a little bit of each as far as you're still training the same? I know we're going to talk about some other things, but
sure.
Like, is the training just backed off and the food actually backed off? Have you dropped weight? What's kind of like been the outcome of that?
So for me, I wasn't sure how it was going to be. I really didn't know coming off, because you have this roller coaster of emotions leading up to that moment, and then you're done. You kind of walk away. And, you know, for us, we also promote the whole weekend, the whole show. So there was a lot of cleaning up and moving and resetting and, you know, trying to come down from that emotional high. So that part was, it was tough, man. It's like you kind of have that roller coaster of emotions with any big contest or show, whatever, anyway. But knowing that I was done, it was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure. And so, you know, for me, I actually got hit with an opportunity right away afterwards. And I was like, well, I'm not really sure. And it was about actually going into an MMA fight, which was very off the wall, very out of left field. Wasn't really sure. And I was like, okay, well, let me think about it. And at first I was like, okay, there's just, that's not going to happen. Right. And so you kind of think about it a little bit more. And I said, well, what could the positives be from this? I need a transition out. The conditioning work, I'm going to have to learn a lot of different things and build skills, but the conditioning work is going to be crazy. So maybe I can take it as a positive and try to drop down, get leaner just by doing that and learn it. And whether it comes to fruition or not, at least I've had the positive of you know, having something to kind of bridge that gap for me, where I can still be athletic and competitive to a certain extent, but I'm not going through this lull of like, okay, I'm done competing. What am I doing? How's the training look? That type of thing. So I kind of dove headfirst into that, really. So it's been, you know, it's been good. And like, as of this moment right now, we still don't 100% have the contract locked in for it, but I've had a heck of a lot of fun learning and training, and I feel like it's been really good for me. So I've actually dropped probably at this point now, maybe close to 25 pounds, 30 pounds down from where I was, which is good. So I actually feel good. Right. And it's been something that kind of forced it. So I didn't really go through that lull where I wasn't sure. And I think I probably would have, because the other thing is I tore my pec a little bit in the contest. So I now walking away had a little bit of an injury to deal with as well, which would have hindered my training. I couldn't just go back to training normal anyway, but I was kind of planning to take the food down and to try to come down a little bit. And I don't know what my walk around weight is going to be. And I think I'm just going to try to figure that out.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, I came down from, 290. I sit around 230 today, and that fluctuates sometimes 10 pounds.
How long did it take you to get down?
Yeah, I mean, a long time. It took me years. I mean, if I still love to train, if you continue to weight train,
yeah.
Which now you're talking about, we'll kind of get into what you're doing in training. It's really hard to lose, the muscle. Everyone's like, it's hard to take muscle off. Well, if you stop training altogether, your muscle will come off.
Yeah.
Because I still eat, 4 meals a day. And I mean, in the beginning, I was eating 6 meals, and then slowly, you start to dissipate down. But how do you find a sparring partner, dude? Did you come to Vegas to spar with Matt, or?
Yeah. Well, we could if you want to. Yeah.
I mean, we got to call tough. Bradley Martin. I mean, that's the closest I've seen. I mean, you manhandled him like nothing.
I've heard, he said he's 260, right? That's the thing going around the internet, 260 pounds.
Dude, you manhandled Bradley Martin.
Yeah. He was trying to mess around in the gym, and I don't think he realized how quick I could move. And also just because of the weight and leverage, like it wasn't that hard to pick him up. And, so,
that tough. About ended it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of just pushed him around a little bit, and then you picked him up, and he didn't have anywhere to go.
No, once his feet.
We love you, Bradley. We love you, man.
Yes. Oh man, we had a good time with it. I actually did, and then people ran with that a little bit more. But he also brings it on himself because he's always saying, "Well, what would happen if we got in a fight?"
I noticed that the other day. He does that to everybody.
Well, could you beat me in a
fight? Well, I mean, he says he's 260. I mean, it should be a shirt that says I'm 260.
I'm 260. Yeah. I just want you to know.
260 too.
Yeah. So no, the sparring partners are hard, man. They're really hard. This week I actually got to work with Derek Wolf.
Yeah, of course,
so,
yeah.
And he's a big guy, but he's also really athletic and can move really well from playing football. And that was huge, man.
I saw him on the Rogan podcast and talk about his hunting adventures, and
he's big into that.
Yeah,
he's actually left today, I think, for a hunting trip.
Yeah.
Again, but he's been hunting, quite a bit more, and he said for him, he just wanted to come in. So I'm working with a few different coaches now too, but one of the guys is Lauren Landau, and he was the Broncos head strength coach for 5 years, I think. And he introduced me to Derek, and Derek was kind of like, he's one of these guys, like a high level athlete, and he just needs something to do. Like, it's like a mental outlet for him, I think. So he was like, hey, if I can just get in there and bang with you a little bit and move around, it's going to be really good for me. So, and it was. I mean, I think it was good for him, but it was fun for me, and it was good to feel somebody that size. But Tyler Gates is the other guy I've been kind of sparring with, and he's on the like high altitude team is who I've been training with there, and he's got a fight this weekend, which is kind of fun. But he's a taller guy. He's actually about 260, ironically enough.
That's the number.
260, and he's really good because he's kind of got a taller frame. He's like 6'6", and like that type of build. So but it's hard, man, because there's not many guys that, like, even Derek Wolf is. He said he was around.
Is he?
He's like 6'7",
yeah,
like somewhere in there. So we're really similar.
But
height.
he's not as. I mean, he's not 400. What do you weigh now?
So I'm right at about 400.
Yeah.
And he told me he was at 300. So it's like, but just dense, like size wise, it's so I have to use that as.
But his agility must be on the next level. I mean,
he was very good. Balance. Yeah. Well, it's like a agility, but balance
of course,
as well.
Yeah.
Because from playing football, he's going against offensive linemen. So it's always kind of redirecting and getting around and moving and pushing. And so that like I said, I had a lot of fun just messing around with him this week, because you learn, like you have to learn. And somebody like that, like that's big, athletic, powerful, movement wise, it was really good for me.
Are you going to train with him on a regular?
I think he's going to try to come in. Yeah. So it'll be great, man. But I think he was also surprised at how easily I could pick him up and move him as well. Because there's like, I'm starting to really identify situations within that training that's been fun. It's kind of like a big puzzle, like that you have to figure out, like, what's presented, what do you do, what are your options, like this kind of thing. So it's been good for my brain too, like especially walking away from strongman. It's like, all right, this is a whole new challenge that I have to do. And a lot of people, I think initially, like, I put out a video saying I was training for it and whatever, and it's met sometimes with a lot of negativity, as a lot of things in this world are, right? Like, you're going to have your opinion. People are going to have their opinion of what you can do, what you're capable of doing. And I kind of, in a way, love that and embrace it, because you can do whatever you want to do. And people out there, a lot of times they'll see it, like, if you look at the comments and say, well, you're too old or too slow or too big or too this or that, right? And you buy into it, you'll never go after what you want to achieve. And now that whole side of this world is kind of bad in a way, right? Because you have these people that have this opinion that are sitting on a couch, probably not doing much with themselves, and they try to bring you down. So in a way, like, it actually kind of fed me a little bit to say, well, I can prove that I can do this, because I can be a student of a completely different thing with the fighting, where I have to learn it, but I have to be a sponge and absorb it, versus going from being one of the best, whatever you want to say, with strongman for how long. Now it's like this whole new thing that I'm not the best. I'm not even close to the best, So, finding training partners and that type of thing is going to be tough, but it's a journey, man.
Yeah. Let me ask you though. So you quit at 40.
41. So
okay.
I'm 41. Yep.
41.
Yep.
Brian, you could have kept going. Like you just said, you were healthy.
Yeah.
And we both had 4 titles, right? So we have,
sure.
I know we have a lot in common. I could have kept going. Like an injury, obviously, I had an injury. I'm
with
sure
the bicep,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
But I was able to come back. I competed. I finished, not my best placing. I felt like I didn't give myself enough time because the density in bodybuilding to carry back.
Yep.
I just wasn't excited to go to the gym on that competitive level. So was it more, did you feel like you're okay, I achieved everything I wanted, or was it the fear of what can happen if I continue?
It's a great, honestly, it's a great question, right? And I think
because I'm not afraid to say I was scared. Like when I didn't want to, like I had such a solid, like you talk about the 10-year, you did 20 years, like at the high level.
Yep.
Like 10 years, I was top 12 years. I was
12
top,
years,
two,
top
in,
two in the
top
world.
two in the world.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So for me, it was like when I finished 6th, it was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like, I've fallen back. So my fear was, okay, do I go backwards? Like, do I have the heart to really come back and get myself to challenge a Phil Heath who had won that year?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I have that drive anymore.
So that was a question that
So it was like, I don't know if I had it, and I was scared at the same time. So it was like, okay, I've done what no one's really done before. How can I capitalize on this success, which, you know, you'll talk about, I mean, all your ventures, like, you're going to be wildly more successful. I can tell you right now, you're going to look back in 5 years and say, oh, I should have done this sooner because your success
walking
is,
away.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what is it? I mean,
Well, I think all those thoughts naturally come, right? So, you know, and for me, I've actually, I would say I've been in the position where you're on top, and then you there's always a new kind of crop of guys coming
Threats.
in, right? Right. So it's all of the guys that I started with and competed against then are gone, right? Like they're kind of gone. So it's like, well, where did all these guys go? And I'm still here. And then you've got this whole new crop. I mean, I'll tell you a story. Like this year, there was 2 guys that made the top 10, both from Ukraine, right? I went over to Ukraine in 2007 to compete in a team contest over there. And they both came to watch me. And they at that point were like 9 years old, right? And now they're top 10 in the world. And I'm competing alongside them, and they came up and they were emotional, saying like, hey, I just want to tell you like how much you inspired me and this story. Like I watched you in Ukraine in 2007, and now I'm here competing alongside you. And it's like, wow, this is humbling in a lot of ways to hear that. But also it's like, wow, how full circle is that maybe, you know, in some way, shape or form, you inspired them to come along and to get to that level. Right. And, you know, it's also, I'm competing against most of the guys are over 10 years younger than me, right? Like it's pretty crazy. So, you know, you think about it, and then like I look in the mirror and say, okay, well at 41, I felt pretty good. I felt pretty strong. I'm still healthy, still move. Like you can argue all day about losing a step or whatever. And I think that realistically, I wasn't this year at my all-time best for sure, right? But I was still complete enough to really be a threat overall,
yeah.
right? And that's I guess the question looking back. So I think when you make the call to be retired, to hang it up, you have to be comfortable with the body of work overall, right? So I have to be comfortable with that and content with what I did and how hard I pushed. And like you said, go into that well in your head and saying, all right, the sacrifices that have to be made, the hunger and fire that has to be there. Do I want to keep going to that well, right? Or is that going to slip a little bit, right? And I still felt hungry this year, you know, and the other X factor for me is I've got my wife and I've got 2 boys, you know, that are now 5 and 7. So they're kind of starting to get into some of their sports and do their thing. And, you know, I'd say that like maybe last year into this year is probably the first time where I really had to kind of skip a practice, or I had to miss out on something they were doing. And that played with me a little bit too. Like it really did. Cause I'm like, well, I want to be there to help them and kind of nurture them. And, you know, if they want to play a sport, I want to help them practice or whatever. And so it's kind of that like kind of multifaceted, you know, thinking process. Right. And then I'm talking to my wife and saying like, all right, well, how long should I go? And then, you know, I don't think you can ever answer the question to say, well, what if I held on another year? What if I held on another 2 years? I probably could have. I think that in reality for me, with where I was at, I genuinely think, and I don't think this is you know, so I made the top 10 15 years in a row, right? I don't know if anybody will touch that, right? It's I think the second best is 9, which is still super impressive, but 15 years in a row. And I think that had I continued, I think I could have made it for another 5 years, 3 to 5 years, right? And I could have done that. But what does that really add to the legacy overall, right? I mean, okay, you can, because at the end of the day, and you know this, it's you can have all the titles in the world and you can have all the accomplishments in the world, but at some point, you can use that also to go in a different direction, which is, I think, kind of what you're saying with okay, let's back off. But it's not an easy decision. It's something that I actually kind of really had to think about, right? Like I put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't kind of a split moment decision to say, hey, I'm done. Like in all truthfulness, being completely transparent, I thought that I was done in 22 after the Shaw Classic that year, right? Like I literally said to one of my closer friends, I said, I think that's it, man. I think I'm done, right? And so I took a period last fall, which nobody knew about, and I said that to him, and I really, like, I talked to my wife, and I said, hey, you know what? Like, I don't know if I'm coming back, but I didn't say it publicly. There was no public announcement of that or anything. So I actually got to kind of live in my head, like, all right, what if I'm done? What if I just say I'm done, and I make an announcement I'm not coming back next year? And I kind of had a period of a few months there where I was kind of like, well, I'm training. And then that little spark kind of came back, and I was like, you know what? I know I can go out better. I know I can. So that was more this year where I kind of called the shot, where everybody from a fan perspective, like, they knew it was my last one. So if you wanted to come see me compete, you got the opportunity, that kind of thing. And so it was special in that sense, where people knew when I said it was going to be my last contest at the Strongest Man on Earth, then it was, right? And so fans got to see that too. So I think that was special, and the send-off was special there. But it's a tough one, man.
You're still going to, when you go to these competitions, even your own that you host, you're going to look at some of these and say, I could do that. Like,
well, I'm here. So there's one that just happened. There's one that just happened in Texas. So it's a Rogue Invitational. And I'm not going to lie, you still look at it and say, well, wow. Like for example, I tested some of the equipment, and I didn't know I was going to do that until I got off the plane. Now I've been training mainly for the MMA stuff, and they have this big arm over arm. It's, they call it the Roga coaster, but it's like you sit at the bottom. It's this big, like, old school roller coaster looking thing. It's awesome. And so they asked me to test it, and I'm like, well, I'm going to test it and make sure it's good. And so we time it and all this. And they have these bags that they put into the cart. And so I was like, they did it with 2 bags last year, but they changed the rope around to make the rope have less flex, which is a big deal for that type of thing. So I said, well, let's test it with 3 bags. So I tested with 3 bags, and they ended up in the contest. And I said, well, I think 3 is right. Like, that's the right way. And they ended up bumping it back to 2 for the guys. And the time that I got with 3, you still would have beat, I think, 7 out of 10. And I was no adrenaline, So I'm like, well, it's kind of nice in a way to know, hey, if I wanted to jump back. I hope
you got it on film.
We had it on film. We actually put it on YouTube. People could watch it on YouTube.
All right, so make sure you guys check out that video.
Yeah. So it's good. But again, like, it's nice in a way to know that if I wanted to say, hey, I'm back, I could do it. Like, it's not I'm broken and I can't do it and I was forced to walk out. So there's some power, I think, in that too. So
you talk about you talk about these 9-year-old kid like that came to see you.
It's insane. Yeah.
So you want to laugh. So I went and did an appearance. You'll love this too. In Holland. Okay, I went to this gym.
Yeah.
And the same thing, 2007. I went and did this guest appearance. It was after I won in 06, so it was like in February of 07. So I was starting a tour now as the new Mr. Olympia. I won in September of 06. So come to the gym. Guess who's there? Rolly Winkler and William Bonnick. And they're
awesome.
They're like the gym heroes, right?
Yes.
They're not who
and
we
this
know.
Is in 2006, 7?
2007. So
okay.
Rolly was kind of small. He had a little build to him, and William Bonnick, and they're like, oh, these guys are going to be really good bodybuilders. And at the time, I mean, I was the new Mr. Olympia. I wasn't thinking about anyone. So when I looked down the line in 2013, and I'm like,
here they are.
I finished 6. Rolly was 7.
That's
in
insane,
the contest, and
man.
then Bonnick. Like, I'm like, okay, it's the same thing. Like, here, I'm looking down the line. I'm like, okay, these guys were all like amateurs, and Ronnie was gone. I mean, Phil Heath obviously was I never expected him. We were kind of training together coming up. So It's like, I know exactly what it is. So that was when I was like, okay, this is a different era for me, right?
Sure. Well, I remember having a conversation with you in Iceland, and I walked over and for some reason the topic, and this would have been 2010 around there.
10, yeah.
And I think somehow, like, I said something about like how long you were going to keep going or something like this. And I remember you said to me then, like, I don't know how long I can keep being the mass monster. I think that's the word that you use with me. Is like, I don't know if I can keep that up. Or
Saying that to him.
Yeah. Well, no, it's true. Yeah. I mean, but you were walking around at probably 300 plus, like there, you know. So it's like, how long?
I just finished the Olympia.
Yeah. How long would you be comfortable doing that? You know. And I remember you said that to me. And I was like, you know, it's there's a lot of work that goes in.
You know what the thing that kind of it's a little not frustrating, but I think about when I weighed that and what I weigh today. I'll be honest, Brian, I felt probably just as good then.
Yeah.
I slept well, I moved well, I trained a lot harder. So if you said, well, I was definitely in more pain, meaning muscle soreness pain, not joint pain. But I honestly felt really good at 290. Like it was pretty, don't want to say it was natural because it wasn't natural for me, but it was pretty easy for me to maintain that because I was just on that routine and the training was that consistent. I mean, the weights I used to pull, I mean, I look at dumbbells now. I mean, we were in the gym and like looking at a 150-pound dumbbell, which you'll laugh because you'll think, you know, I know you do this like in your sleep. But like I used to grab that with my fingers and I had that strength. I just don't have that strength anymore. You know, after tearing both biceps and like my biggest fear now is to tear a muscle. But I just wonder if you'll ever get to that point where, you know, you built this crazy home gym.
Yeah. Yep.
Which probably is going to be your place where you educate people, right? I mean,
sure. I've had guys come in now. I love it. Yeah, love it.
I mean, I heard about this over and over. He's told me about it a million times. I still yet to see it.
Yeah, we need to get you out there.
And you have all this utilities there to do all this type of training. And like, are you utilizing that at all right now, or are you just mainly doing?
No, I'm definitely still lifting. I love lifting, and I'll be honest, that's probably the hardest part of this for me. Is the weight room's always been my training field, right? Like that's number one. It's always been number one. I love that. I love the feeling of it. I love embracing it, the challenge, all that. So to have to go to learning skills with MMA is very difficult because now the weight training is down the totem pole a little bit. And it's hard for me mentally to be like, well, I want to go train, but if I go train, it's going to really hinder what I can do with the fighting. So it will, for me, will be 100% a temporary thing. Like it's just almost proving I can do it. But that weight room, like just like you, like it's just part of life, right? Like I love
every day.
lifting.
I train 7 days a week. Dude.
I love it. And you just feel better.
Do you hear that?
You know?
Just yesterday, I was listening to The Rock and Joe Rogan, and they were talking about how they started in the gym, and then they had the different careers, and as you wind down, you find your way back to the gym.
Well, Arnold's still the same boat.
Sure, he still trains all.
Every day,
Yep.
every day.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I think that everybody, like, and this is what I say to everybody. I think everybody should train. I think everybody should lift weights. Whether you're going to compete or not compete, it's such a good thing to do for your life, you know, in general. And you learn so many things about yourself within training. Normal people, it's sad to me that a lot of people will never experience that because it carries over to so many aspects of your life too. And I think that whether you have aspirations of competing or not competing, it doesn't really matter. It's just like a good outlet that everybody should embrace, I think, and that's what I try to tell people. And it's neat to hear people come up like at the Olympia. I had a few different people, and I'm sure you have this all the time too, but there was multiple people that said they had lost over 100 pounds, right? They walk up in line, 100 pounds. Think about that, 100
it's a human
pounds.
Being.
It's insane. And you can tell the look on their face and the pride that they have in saying something like that. It's a life-changing thing. It literally is a life-changing thing to do that. And all it was is embracing that challenge and overcoming obstacles and making it happen.
So this was your final year, and I'm assuming you knew towards the beginning of the year, but you had a serious issue in the beginning of the year.
Massive.
I mean, really, it could have killed you.
Yeah.
It could have.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about what happened or whatever you want to talk about. And,
sure.
And what you had to do to overcome it, because you went into these last two shows not at 100% of yourself.
So the thing was, I made a video announcing it was going to be my last one, right? And then it was about a week or two later, I go and have this day where I can't get out of bed. Like I literally can't get out of bed, and you know my you have lymph nodes in your groin, right? And it was really like painful and swollen, and I was like, oh, I just slept bad, you know, that kind of thing. And I told my wife, I was like, I just need to lay down and whatever. And so that it's like in the afternoon. This is very abnormal for me. Very like that's normally like I'm good. I slept. We'll get up. We'll get going. Whatever. So I go in and go to like the urgent care because we were up in the mountains at our place in the mountains there, and they gave me some antibiotics. And I was like, okay, like I'm not sure what's going on, but my leg started hurting. And then that, like, I just kind of think, like, okay, you have lymph nodes in your neck. Like, maybe there's something going on. We'll get an antibiotic. It'll be fine. So I scheduled with my normal doctor the next day. I went in there, and he switched up the antibiotics. So I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, antibiotics might take a day or two to kick in. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And my leg is, like, swelling and getting red. And I'm stubborn anyway with things like that. But I was like, oh, I'll just take another day. The antibiotics will work. It was not working. So finally, thank goodness for my wife being the way she is, she's like, look, you have to go. You have to go into the emergency room. Like something is not right. Cause I was like trying to put my sock in and I'm sweating and it's just like so painful. Right. And I go in and basically what ended up happening is I got it was a staph and strep infection. So cellulitis, very, very aggressive. But I got in there and they, I thought, okay, well, we'll just get some antibiotics and I'll go home. That was not what happened. So it was to a point where if I would have waited another day, potentially 2 days, they would have had to amputate my leg. Like it was that bad. Like and it was so aggressive, such an aggressive infection that I didn't know how bad it was. So I ended up spending 10 days in the hospital with that, fighting it, and they were giving me like IV antibiotics, whatever, and then my veins stopped accepting that. That was really the crap part. So then they had to run this, like, I think it was called a PICC line. So they run it through your arm and in, and so I had to get the antibiotics that way. So it was rough, man. But once they started like actually legitimately coming in the room and talking about cutting my leg off, I was like, well, this is big time. Like I didn't understand how serious it was, but the other problem was because of my size, the infection, you have a lot more tissue, right, to treat. So it was really, really tough to come back from. And to be fair, I'm actually still dealing with like the after effects of that and trying to work through it because it's something that just doesn't go away. But I got out, from the hospital. A lot of people, we put out some videos on YouTube if people want to check this out, like, kind of documenting the process. I talked in the hospital a little bit, and it was more one of these challenges where I had announced and then, I was getting ready to compete. So I went through that and kind of like the comeback, but I got out of the hospital and they said they wanted to leave this midline thing in me or PICC line, whatever it was. And I said, no, you have to take it out because I have to train, So I had to go back and get some more treatments. But, you walk in the gym and it's like the discipline to go through something hard. And it was crazy because the people that watched that had gone through something similar were like, I can't believe, because I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do this. And it was hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't hard, but like I've had to go through a lot of hard shit in my life too. And when you compete at the top level, you have to battle adversity. You have to. And so this I embraced as another challenge. So it was a bad leg problem, man. Bad. And people don't understand, they still won't understand because I never understood an infection like that, like how aggressive that was, but it was like crazy aggressive. Like if it would have got in my blood, it could have killed me.
When you were doing the final World's Strongest Man, like you could see your other leg almost looked double the size the calf of the other one.
And I still deal with some swelling, like stuff that I'm getting treated to right now, but there's a lot of scar tissue. So when you have that infection, basically the way your body tries to fight it is just scar tissue. And so it creates the drainage isn't as good because everything just gets scarred up. So it's now like I'm getting that, some like special treatments to get that broken up, but it'll take time and it's super painful to get it done, whatever. But it's crazy, man.
You had cellulitis, didn't you? But not that aggressive.
Yeah, not that bad.
Yeah.
It was.
I was able to do antibiotics, not any IV, that kind of stuff.
So when you were doing,
and the crazy part is like it literally was just a scratch. That's all it was I had a scratch, and then the only thing I can possibly think is I do a lot of hot and cold treatment, and maybe there was something in the hot tub or cold, like something that just got in there. But it was so quick, man. It was like I went in because I did that hot and cold the night before. Then I went to bed because I did it right before bed, and then woke up with this problem. And it was, but battling through that, like, you know, you have to battle through adversity. And a lot of people, you know, again, it's the response is, well, why would you do that? And why would you go through that? Well, because I needed to prove it to myself too. You know what I'm saying? So like I have two options, right? You lay down, you quit, you give up, or you lean into it and you go harder. And it wasn't easy, man. Like, I mean, I had to work my way back into lifting and then building up and whatever, and to get into the kind of shape to be ready to compete. But I'm proud of doing it, right? Like and it shows. I think it shows, like, in a way, everything happens for a reason. That's what I think, right? Like, so whether me going through that and sharing that story helps somebody out, maybe that's what it's for. Like, somebody else is fighting something and they need to learn, hey, I can get through this. I can stay on my feet. I don't have to give up and not fight back, you know. So fighting through it, you know, to have things play out the way they did this year. And, you know, World's Strongest Man didn't necessarily play out the way that I wanted it to. I was in really good shape there. And, you know, the way that they do that contest, like, we can, you know, don't necessarily have to go into that, but it just,
we will.
The form, well, we can, we definitely can. I mean, the format, I got into the stone off that they do, but it's only unique there. And I happened to get it in a stone off with a guy that was really good at lifting stones, you know, so I had to dig into the well, and I just couldn't recover from that. Right. Yeah. So to get into the final, I had to go in that place where I could have done it all day at that point, but then the recovery side to only have one day off and try to compete again, it just didn't work. Yeah. You know, so
your final show is the Strongest Man on Earth.
Correct. Yep.
And talk about the process of how the Shaw Classic is now the Strongest Man on Earth.
Yeah.
And talk about the process of how it became that.
Yeah. So really, the Shaw Classic as a whole started in 2020. And that was basically, I wanted to do something good for the guys, right? So everything shut down, and a lot of these guys rely on prize money, sponsorship money. That's how they pay their bills, a lot of them, right? So I said, I just had the idea. I went to my wife and I said, look, we can do this. So I just said, hey, I'll put up 25 grand of my money. We'll fly in the 10 guys, put them up, pay for everything, and we'll just have a contest in my gym. So we'll clear out the equipment in my gym and we'll just run it that way. And that's how it started. It was just like, hey, and all the guys were on board. Everybody's like, hey, this will be great. And so we ended up using a portion of the kind of online streaming sales. And we actually edited the show back then and put it out the next day. But no, it worked because everything was shut down, and it was perfect, right? So we were able to do that, get it out, and then, you know, ended up more than doubling the prize money that year in 2020. And then we've just grown it every year. So we went to a bigger venue in 21, and then an even bigger venue in 22, and then we went back there in 23 this year. But it's basically a strongman contest that's run, you know, by me, by my team, but it's by an athlete for athletes, right? That's what it is, right? So I've competed for a long, long time, and from a contest standpoint, it's always been, well, the promoters are the promoters and the athletes are the athletes, and a lot of times things don't necessarily trickle downhill to the athletes. It's more so the promoters will take their lion's share of everything, and the athletes just need to shut up and do what they do.
They get what's left over.
Exactly. And so I said there's always a problem with that, because at the end of the day, if the athletes are not putting on a show and they're not performing, nobody buys seats, nobody buys the live stream. You have to have the athletes. They're the catalyst to all of this happening. And that's my thought process, right? Because I've been an athlete, but now I'm in the promoter role as well. So sharing everything and being like, well, our prize money is going to go up. The more support we have, the better everything's going to get for the athletes. And we really care about the fans as well. So the fan experience is a big part of what we do. So, you know, the arena that we are in now is wonderful, because every seat in there is great. You can see everybody.
How many is it seat?
What's that?
How many is it seat?
So we had this year just about 4,000 people in there. So it's
sold out fast.
We're going to bump it back. So we have a curtain that we have. And so the backstage area is next year going to get a little bit smaller, but you have to have it for
you got room though. There is a ton of room back there.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll just get better with the backstage, but the staging of it. So it's been this natural progression of more and more and more. And now we have them traveling not only from other states, but other countries. Like, I mean, almost 70%, I think, of our tickets were from out of state coming, which is crazy. Like
when I flew out for it, there was people on my plane coming from Vegas that had Brian Shaw stuff.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's people love it, and the format is different, from our contest. So we have 16, whereas most of the other top contests do 10, right? So we have more events as well. A lot of them will have 5 or 6 events. We have 8. So it's just a better test of strength. And then I really, really spend a lot of time with the equipment, dialing the weights in so that we're testing. We are finding out for sure who the strongest man on earth is. There's nobody. I could have a conversation. A lot of times you can debate this stuff, but I don't think there's anybody that has knowledge that would debate that we 100% find the strongest man on earth, right? You can't. We test every facet of strength. Everything is dialed in weight-wise, so it's a great test. Each event is hard, it's heavy, there's separation between the competitors. So there's a lot that goes in on the back end, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's it's a project of passion and love, right? Like I genuinely love it to that point where I want to do something good. And I mean, this year, I'm really proud of this, but we were able to grow the prize money. So we started the first year 25. Like I said, I put up $25,000 of my own money the first year to start it. And this year we gave away 252, I think, at the end of it. So that's only second in the strongman world, only second to the Rogue Invitational. And that was only our 4th year, right? So I think that we're just starting to scratch the surface of where we can go with that. But it's crazy, man. And then I won this year, and then it was just under 100,000 was first place, and then I just gave that all back to all the guys. So I just put it and split it up between all of them and said,
how many guys?
So this year we ended up with 14. We had 2 that pulled out at the last minute, and I didn't want to play the game of bringing in last minute replacements, so we ended up just running with 14 because it was like only about a week and a half out where they backed out. So
me watching it as someone who's not super knowledgeable between the strongman world, when I went to the World's Strongest Man, it didn't seem like they were trying to find the world's strongest man. Like, this is just my opinion. I'm not, but I saw these events. It seemed like it was CrossFit with strength, and some of these like events they did, everybody finished. Yeah. But at yours, there's somewhere only 1 or 2 guys were even able to finish it.
Yes, and this is a bigger debate within the world of strongman, right? And this is something I've been more vocal about. I think definitely over the past few years, where if you're gonna crown the world's strongest man, right, you need to have events where you have separation. That should be your biggest and heaviest weights. It should be the hardest contest by far, right? And that's something that I just don't think has happened adequately, right? And so that's where I have offered, and a lot of people out there won't realize how many meetings I've had on the back end, how much I've tried to help, how much I've tried to give insight, and a lot of changes actually have happened. To their credit, we used to not have any warm-up equipment at all. You'd have a bar and a couple weights, and that was what you got to warm up with. So they've done better there. They actually didn't used to give out trophies for first, second, and third. It was only a first place trophy, and then second and third got nothing, like a little piece of glass that was etched or something, right? Like, I should show you some of my second and third place trophies, but they're nothing. So I said, that's important. Some of these guys train their whole life to get second or third. Like, you should have a good trophy for them. That type of thing. So there have been changes there, but as far as like the contest as a whole, strongman is tough, man. It's a tough one, because when you put on a contest, picking the right test of strength to make sure that you're covering all your bases, and then dialing the weights in is not easy, right? I try to document some of this to show people like how much work is actually put in on the back end. But, for example, we're kind of joking about me testing some of the stuff with the Rogue Invitational. you have to have somebody that's big enough and strong enough to test these type of events to make sure that they're dialed in, right? So when you see from a fan perspective, this is the true, I think, test of somebody that doesn't know much, right? They watch a strongman event. As a fan, without knowing much, you should be able to visually see if this guy's able to do it and do it well, and this guy struggles and can't finish, who's stronger? Easily this person, right? If it comes down to a stopwatch click and everybody's, like, for example, the truck pull.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
You had, I think, 8 guys within 2 seconds, right? So now you have the human element, and some of them were within tenths or hundredths of a second split. So now it's just like, how quick is my thumb for you pulling it versus me pulling it, or Jay pulling, right? And that's not a good.
There shouldn't be that many guys finishing that close.
No, and now that's compromised as well. Like, now you literally, by having that one event, you compromise the whole contest, in my opinion, right? Because now you've done that. That should have been thrown out or tested better, you know. But this is where the debate comes in about that. And so, you know, like I said, for so many years, I tried to offer my insight, my expertise, and knowledge to make it better, and things just weren't being done the way they needed to be done. And so that's really why, you know, taking the bull by the horns and putting on you know, the strongest man on earth at the Shaw Classic, that's a big deal. But getting the trademark for the strongest man on earth is also a story in itself. So Paul Ohl ran a contest in Canada that was called Fortissimus back in 2008 and 2009, and he had trademarked the strongest man on earth. So the winner of Fortissimus was crowned officially the strongest man on earth. Now, this was a 10-event contest, brutal, and that's kind of my introduction to strongman. That was like, okay, wow, this is next level, man. Like, the weights were big, everything was hard, and that's what I really loved about it. I love the format. I love that test of strength. And so I actually reached out to Paul because he stopped running it after 2009. And I said, hey, Paul, like, you still have that trademark, the strongest man on earth, but you're not using it. And he actually was a fan of what I was doing. And he said, you know, this is like, I would back this contest that you're putting on as officially crowning the strongest man on earth. So I said, well, let's work something out to get that trademark. And so that's what we did. Is he endorsed what we were doing. And you know, for him, I'm very big on respect, right? And having his respect was a big deal to me because of what he has done in the history of strength and what he, you know, what his role that he played within the, you know, bigger picture, if you will, right? Yeah. So Paul coming on board and you know, us getting that trademark was a big deal. Right, so that's you know, it's an official title. Like, I'm not just saying that, it's a trademark title that we have, and I think that'll really help our contest to move forward. And you know, again, it's something I really believe in, man. And I think it's just a contribution back to the sport. And you know, for anybody that has come out and watched it, like, there's, you know, we always take the feedback from fans and from the competitors and everything. Like, we really try to go above and beyond with everything that we're doing for the event to make it grow and to give back. And I think that we've been able to do that. Of course, you can always get better, of course, right? Like, everything can get better. And I like to think about it that way. I thought about it that way when I was competing. Like, you don't get better if you're like, well, that was perfect. You know, we're never going to improve. So, you know, I still want to improve in a big way. And I think we will, again in 2024. And you know, this will, be very exciting, man. I mean, some of the stuff we have planned is going to be really, really cool. And you know, the tickets are live now. We got those out in case anybody wants to buy them for the holidays or as presents or whatever. So, but I mean, there's not a bad seat in the house, and the energy in that arena as the guys are competing is insane. Yeah. It's honestly insane.
I think I'm coming, right?
Yeah, you talked about it, but we haven't. Yeah. He's asked me. He hit me right after it ended. Yeah. What do I have to do to get Jay here next year?
You coming, man, would be so cool. Yeah. That would be so cool. I mean, it's just a fun thing, and we have an expo that we run alongside it, which is actually free. We do it free for the public, and we have last year we had some really cool guest speakers as part of that, and you know, a lot of people had a really good time coming out. So it's definitely like a family friendly, kind of thing. And especially for kids, like seeing the guys lift the type of things, that are getting lifted is like, it's mind blowing to them.
So you go to do your last event.
Yeah.
What went through your head as you walked out, knowing it's over?
Yeah. Well, for me, so I had tore my chest on the standing.
And how much weight was that again?
So the last barrel, once it dropped in, was 570 pounds in the hands. So I'd won it. I'd already done 2 reps, and then I don't know why I went for another one. It's just because of energy. Like I was like, well, this is the
place
last
is going
one.
crazy.
So what is it though? Tell me what you're doing with a barrel.
So it's a standing up, and then you have a pad behind you. So it's basically a vertical chest press, right?
Okay.
So you're chest pressing out, and then it's a lever that comes out, and then we built this whole apparatus where these barrels drop in and roll down, and I'll show you a video of it. It was insane. It was a very, very hard
we do
build.
that. There's that thing of elevation, that chest piece.
It's similar to that, but
but their barrels are the weight.
so like the first weight, and every time you do a rep,
heavier.
a barrel comes down,
drops down, and
Yeah.
so
like
it gets
a keg
harder.
of beer.
Yes.
So you start off light and just keep going.
What's the entry level on it?
Entry, gosh, that first lift
300
was
something?
about, yes, I'd have to look back at the notes, 370, maybe
It's something like that. It's like every time a barrel comes
light
down.
for you.
Yeah.
Lightweight,
Well, most of the guys,
you and one other guy did it. No one else did it.
So 2 out of 14 finished.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's a good test.
Yeah.
And yes, there's guys that tied on certain weights and that type of thing. But, if you only have 2 out of 14 finished, that's a big weight, So, walking out to the last event, because I'd done that, I didn't know how bad it was, and it was still attached and whatever, but I was just trying to keep it loose. Yeah. And the last event, we had to do the fingers, which I didn't want to get outside my body. I wanted to stay here, right, like in line, so that that pec didn't have to do too much. Yeah. So I took it a little bit slower, and I had calculated out what I needed to do to win, because I had a few points gap there. So I said, well, by the time I went in the last pairing, if I finished, I won, and that's all I really knew. So you went fingers into power stairs, heavy power stairs. So 600 pounds of the last power stairs implement up, and so I was just working my way up, and it was it's just one of those moments, man, where it was just surreal, right? Like you get there, get to the top, you finish it, you win, everybody's going crazy. The guys are coming out, and it was a good finishing moment. You know what I'm saying? Like you almost couldn't script it better.
It's the Jordan fall away.
It is, man. It's just I'm really proud of that. Like it was, because the thing is, you had, I think we had, 4. Well, this year is so Alexi, Tom Stoltman, Mitch Hooper, myself. So you had four World's Strongest Man winners in the lineup, like a crazy stacked up lineup of guys, and these are all the young. Young bulls, right? Like they're coming up and everything. And all of them are going hard. It's not like, okay, this contest is set up. And I actually, to be fair with the events, and I really tried to do this, is try to shy away a little bit from my good stuff, like the best stuff I could do. So I wanted to have challenges in there where it's fair, it's balanced, and whatever. So all that aside, it was neat to compete, man, and to walk out that way and to have all the guys support me like they did, and the fans and everything like that. It's a moment I'll never forget, right? Like you won't forget that type of moment. Overall, and it's just going out to execute. Like, to answer your question, I took it just like any other event, like I would. It's calculated. I knew what I had to do to win. I went out and did it, and got it done. And it's still surreal, man. Like, I'll see pictures. There's a really cool picture, like from the back, where I'm standing up and talking, and like the crowd's like all there. Everybody's staying and listening, and it was neat.
So whenever I go to events, I'm always like respectful of stuff. And it was his last one, so I was like, this. And I just walked right out in the front of it, and I just held my camera like this. I'm like, this is the last one. Who's kicking me out of here?
You know what's funny though is like I won Olympias, for finished in the top. I don't like this. I don't recall anyone to be different.
No.
whether I won or lost, I always felt achievement because you could talk about the adversity, right? We all had adversity. Every single one was different, right?
Yes.
We dealt with this or dealt with that, or, you felt certain ways. We all went to the gym on certain days, and I say this all the time. Not every day is a rock star day, meaning like, you're just like, damn, I didn't achieve this. But what do we live for? It's the challenge, right? So now I can understand like the mindset you have. You're never going to be able to stop like and say, okay, I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
I did this. Now, of course, you're in a new challenge and like you're probably good, but you're not the best.
No. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is maybe a challenge for me. I'm still trying to find whether, I'm looking at business now and trying to be the best at business, right?
Yep.
Because I need the challenges, and I couldn't just kick back on my couch and say, oh, here's my awards and this is what I do. I mean, I look at this every day, and like I wake up to this every day and I'm like, wow, that's quite an achievement, right?
It is, yeah.
But I kind of like, okay, that was that time. Now let's move on to the bigger and better things.
Well, it's always got to be something new. And I think when you're wired that way to be the best, and you have been the best at something you have done, you constantly need something else. And I think that's the nature of it. And there's not a lot of people in the world that will understand that, right? Like the drive and that hunger, that fire. And okay, yes, for me, the strongman thing may be done, and for you, like the bodybuilding thing is done, and you walk away with all those accomplishments. The same thing. Like I walk up and see all the different trophies or whatever, but it's like, okay, what's next? I gotta have something next to drive for, and to be striving.
Is
for.
that like I'm gonna put 20,000 people in an arena for the strongest man on earth? That's
you will one day.
That will happen.
Yeah, it's
that will be national TV. Like you're streaming it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be, maybe that's the goal. I'm sure you have your vision, and you may not even want to expel that on what we're talking about right now. But I'm sure you've sat in a room and been like, okay, this is way bigger than I ever thought it would be, right? Think about it. Did you ever think you'd be a promoter when you started? I mean, strongmen don't get into strongmen to make money, right? You didn't get it. Because the money was so little, right?
Yeah, so many people told me that too.
Yeah,
like
they
actually
told me
when
told
I
you
started,
the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
And you open the door, and it's just whether you believe what they're saying or not. And if you believe what you can do and kind of have a vision for yourself, and you're willing to work extremely hard to open the doors, things are possible. And so I think more so now I think about it as there's a lot of possibilities, right? So like I said, it's 4 years for us with the contest we promoted, and it's got to the level it's at. And this is a byproduct again. Like I don't like to sit here and say, okay, well, we did this. It's the athletes coming in and supporting it, right? And all of those, you could go ask those guys, and a lot of them either can't say or won't say anything about it being the best or whatever, and that's fine. But they all walk away with a positive experience, and they're happy, and they're content with how they got treated, and they're like, man, I want to come back, right? So you don't have the support from the athletes, you don't have anything. Then the fans are huge, right? So you have people that have been there from, at least the first year we allowed fans was 21, and there's people that have come every single year, and they'll say, well, I'm coming back, and then they'll bring somebody with them. And so it kind of is like this fire that keeps growing and growing. And I think there's a ton of possibility there. I really, really do. And I think that, I'm the same way with having these competitive outlets. So this is definitely one, and I'm not shy about saying that. I want to be the best, right? Like from a contest standpoint, I want it to be the best, right? And the way that I look at that is, if we raise the bar, well, guess what? Other contests are going to have to raise the bar too. And if that happens, who wins? The athletes win, right? Ultimately, they're going to win.
The ultimate gift for you. That's like bigger than all your accolades, right?
Yes.
We talked about this last time. I called you the pioneer of strongman, right? That giving back is the most important thing to you.
Well, the guys would win it. And in all fairness, let's just call it what it is. The bankroll of potentially some other contests is much bigger than what we can bring to the table right now, right? That's just true. You can call it what it is. But if some of these other events, like let's just say the prize money, right? We were able to bump it up to that, over $250,000 this year, which is awesome. I'm so happy. But to me, that's just scratching the surface. We can do better than that. That's how I feel.
What's the biggest prize?
Is it Rogue?
So Rogue, I would have to look at the numbers this year, but it is Rogue. They were in 22, and then we were, so in 22 I think they gave away like 255. We were close this year in 23, but then in 23 they bumped it again, which is awesome. And Rogue Fitness has done more for strongman, and that's like a lot of credit goes there. So they're supportive of our event as well, and that's huge. And so it's kind of having the conversation, like the owners of Rogue, Bill and Katie Henniger, they understand what I'm trying to do, because I've been very clear about it being about the athletes and bringing opportunities for them and that type of thing. And so I think when you do things for the right reason and you have a good heart going into it, things will naturally grow.
It's like a web, yeah.
It's huge. So I'm not walking into it and saying, in all fairness, like from a profit standpoint, for us, it's probably not the best business model to give away that much money compared to what we're bringing in, right? But in my mind, it's doing something good. And then the byproduct of that will be, okay, well, maybe people go there, but they might support me or our brands in a different way because we're part of it and we're doing good things. And that's what I told my wife the first year. I said, look, she said, well, if we're going to put up this money and pay all this, because the travel is even more expensive, right? The money that was put up for prize money was one thing. But I said, we're just going to do the right thing. We're going to do a good thing, right, for the sport, for the guys. And I think it will come back. It may not come back in the event, but it naturally will come back in different ways.
You know why I think it's going to continuously grow and be the best event in the world? Because it's done right from every angle. Like even when I go as someone from the outside, I see the backstage.
Well, your perspective is good. And you saying, because you were there.
Yeah. I see the guys backstage. I see the massage therapists. Yeah. I see the medical people. I see whatever food they want, whatever drinks they want. Obviously, we have Trifecta. Send them all organic food there.
They've been on board to the two companies that are huge there is Trifecta, because they were on board the first year in 2020, first year. Rogue and Trifecta, the first year, which is incredible.
So the athletes are taken care of. They're paid well. But then from a fan's perspective, on the other side of that curtain, every event is a visual. Yeah. It's not just hey, we're going to put a leg press out here. There's a car on top of it. It's not just a bench press. It's a apparatus that has that a little kid could go, oh, look at that. Look at the barrels coming down. Every event, or like the other one where they pull the rope, it's like you're pulling this massive piece of iron up through and you get to see everything. So it keeps the attention of the fan. Even if you brought a 5-year-old child there, they're going to watch it and their jaw's going to drop and maybe one day go, I'm going to move that one day. Yeah. So it's entertaining all around.
It needs to be a spectacle, man. It has to be a spectacle, and that's a big part of it. So I'm really fortunate. The guys at Red Iron, and I've worked with them. I actually trained. So David runs it now. Atkins is his last name, but his dad, Brian Atkins, I started training in his home after I got out of college, and I was just getting into strongman. And Brian was asking me, I'm just getting into strongman. He's like, hey, well, what are you doing? What event do you have? And so I had these crazy events. And he was like, well, I think I could help you build that so you could train like a fingal finger or like the power stairs. And so he's like, oh, we'll trade it out for training, because I didn't have money. I didn't have any money to buy that stuff. And he's like, well, I'll just build it and we'll figure it out. And so that's what I literally did is I went there. And so, Brian passed away. He actually married Carrie and I, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I've been like really like close with that family. And now David, again, this is not what they do, but they take a portion of that and help me to build these crazy things. And I think he thinks it's fun, to be fair.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a playground. Like a playground as a kid, but like even the one thing, like what's a wheelbarrow? It's so big and massive, they pile all this stuff and you're just like, how the fuck are these guys moving that? Yeah. But if you go to other competitions, I'm sure they have a similar movement, but the visual isn't giving the fans the experience.
Well, I mean, just that chest press, right? That people would never imagine how much that costs to build, and the revisions and the testing and all of that. Like it was crazy.
See, when I'm thinking about that, it's after the guy's done, they got to bring in a forklift to lift it up to reset them.
No.
Or how is it reset?
So that's the beauty. That's the beauty of this, right? Is the way it was designed, it resets on its own.
Well, I remember it was lifting something up.
So the barrels roll out.
It was basically like two C's together, right? Or a lot of people said, oh, well, it's an S for Shaw or S for strongman, whatever. But so that the barrels would drop from the top here and come down. And then when the athlete was done, this is the part they were lifting and pressing.
I thought a forklift lifted that.
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
So then we had a winch drop this down. So then you release all the barrels roll back in, and then go back up.
But you see this.
It's a spectacle. Even the reset is, and we talked about that. Yeah. I said, so people, physically there, well, watching the live stream too, you could watch that. It's like, wow, this is getting reset, and all these barrels are going, and then it resets itself. That was part of the presentation.
You guys are a bunch of big kids.
It is. Well, look, man, I think some of this stuff up, and I go on and have these conversations, and I don't know if they think I'm crazy or not, but
I was just going to say that imagine going and sitting down with a metal fabrication. What I'm looking to do is have these barrels drop like a Donkey Kong game.
These are like dreams in the middle of the night, and you got to wake up and write down,
Yes. Well, you got to raise the bar, man. And but the spectacle, this is what people... Because okay, let's just say, for example, with that event, the last bench is 570 pounds. If I put a bench press out there with 570 pounds of weight, it would be impressive, right, or whatever. But nobody would go back and say like, what was that? Like what did I just watch, right? Yeah. Or the leg press, for example, the car. I could easily get that amount of plates on there,
of course,
right? And it would just be a quote unquote normal leg,
but it's a huge car,
dude. This is the point, and that's why like you'll see stuff, some of the social media stuff, like ESPN picked up that car leg press. I don't know how many, 15, 20, 30 million views, whatever. Or the same thing with the chest press. Like they'll pick it up because it's obscure, it's crazy, right? It draws attention, and this is the thing is I'm not unwilling to spend money on the events themselves to make it a spectacle. Whereas I could have normal equipment. You could put a bar out there for argument's sake and say, hey, we'll just deadlift a normal bar with plates. No, why we got to have a like the deadlift bar is 14 feet long with 8 tires on it and whatever, because it's the spectacle. This is what strongman is. But so the weights are the weights, and not that you don't have to have those dialed in, but it's about the spectacle. It's about the performance. It's about the show, right? Like this is what it is.
So now it's going to happen. You're going to wake up one night and you're going to think of some crazy thing. You're going to text Brian. Hey, what about this?
He's like the Doc Brown, from Back to the Future with all these ideas.
You gotta always be raising the bar, and it's just it's competitive with that. That's one thing that I do it. It's fun for me, but also. You roll that into we were just having a business talk, but before we hopped on here, and you're talking about how you're going to drive sales and move the needle there. And so I'm also love that, and that'll be another outlet for me, like as you set it up. So I'm always kind of thinking about what's next, right? Like there's something else that we could do, and trying to set things up, and there's always the ceiling can always get higher, always. Right. So like having something to work on and it's a challenge, man. But for a lot of people, they don't understand to kind of fill that competitive cup, you need to do it. I guess that's kind of the point of, you could, like for you, right? You could probably sit back and say, hey, I'm comfortable. I'm good. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. But you're competitive with things that you do. It's just a natural thing. And I think I'm very much the same way. I want to do it better. And if I get into it, I want to try to do it the best that I possibly can, the best. And so that's kind of, with this contest, you're starting to see that. I think people are seeing that and saying, wow, this is pretty crazy, right? Like, where can the bar go next year? Can we raise it? What can we do? And that's exciting. And then, again, at the base of it, you're doing it for the right reason. So, whether it's, supplements or supportive gear or shirts or whatever. Like there's just a level of expectation that I have that, there's, people that I've worked with or whatever. Like I don't want anything less than the best. Right. Like that's what I want. I want that because I'm demanding it of myself too.
Like this morning when we were having breakfast, we were talking about evolution. And I told him, I said, there's people in the bodybuilding world that could use his accessories because if they're good enough for the strongest man on earth that's moving heavier weights than these guys are,
sure,
and you are, it would work in this lane. So evolution, obviously, the last time you were here, you talked to us about how you're the largest sewer in the world.
Yeah.
And so where is that going with evolution now?
Yeah, man. There's constant growth that has to happen and needs to happen within anything. And so I think that's the goal with that. And I have had to learn that I've only got so much bandwidth with different areas, right? So, for example, when the belt, like our flagship product is really a support belt. So we have a support belt and a sport belt. So they're just two different levels, but they're both the best out there when it comes to supportive, gear as far as a belt. And so both of those, that was what I sewed by myself to make for myself. And then we prototyped it. It took a couple years to get the prototypes done and then come back. So that's the product that I would say if you look at across the board competitors, whether they are working with us or not, that's a product they will all use because it's the best, right? So that's something that kind of launched everything off the ground, I guess, would be that belt. And then you spin off of that into other things where we try to do the best that we possibly can. But there's a lot of, prototyping. There's ideas that I have there as well. But, as funny as it might be, it is actually me sitting down at a sewing machine and prototyping it myself and then saying, does this work? Is it a viable thing? And there's a few things that I've got kind of in the hopper, so to speak, but I need to test it myself. And then we have to get the prototyping and, there's a lot of stuff that happens there too. So, all of that, it will grow. It will grow. It's just kind of over time. And it's one of these things where it's neat for me to sit back and, watch a contest happen and the competitors are wearing our gear, like that's really neat for me because you're talking about, a sport that I love that I came into, started competing with nothing at all. Right. And then you go on to have success there. And now, it's full circle where, in my last contest, not only are the other guys wearing my gear that I'm putting out, but also we're sponsoring. I'm literally sponsoring guys that I'm competing against. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how crazy is that?
Does that mean they let you win?
No,
I'm just kidding.
Definitely not. Yeah.
You're like, don't win or Brian's going to drop you.
No, but it's neat, man. So you're again, but it's giving back, right? Like it's all this big circle of trying to give back and support. And I think that's probably what's maybe different about me is like seeing that vision within the sport. So you love it. I really, really love it, right? Like I just loved it since day one, before I was even competing, when I was a fan. And then you're getting in a spot where you can actually give back and move the needle for the other competitors is neat, man. It's neat, to be able to do that. So
are our partners at Trifecta happy because the budget's going down now?
I need to talk to Greg. Yeah.
How many boxes was Brian getting a week?
I think the older box, you were getting like four
of them. Yeah.
And it's condensed now because the meat's it's a little smaller now. What do you get now?
They fit it into two now.
They fit it into two,
but the packaging. Yeah.
But two of them is like you see some of the boxes where it's half filled. He gets two to the brim, but hopefully he hasn't negotiated a contract that we have to feed his boys because they're both going to be bigger than him.
So the nice thing is I can really look forward to 2024. Our net revenue is going to be much greater because I'm not
sucking it down. Yeah.
That's why you got to work so hard because your two boys,
dude,
especially the young, is going to be a monster.
They honestly are, man. It's fun. It's fun to watch them like go through everything they're doing. Right now, they're both wrestling, which has been fun to see them get into that and get fired up. And then our older son is really excited about basketball, so that's something that I think he's he's going to kind of gravitate to it a little bit more. But, it's just this progression. You kind of sit back and you'll let them get in the environment and see what happens, because they'll both come in the gym. They love to come in the gym with me, which is fun. And, they'll set up, last weekend, they set up these obstacle courses. That's what they do. So they'll race each other. So they're about 2 years apart.
But they're almost the same size.
They
Close.
are. Yeah. Our younger one he's a tank, man. He's a big boy, but it's just like, it's fun for me to sit back and watch them because they'll come up. I'm not doing any of it. They'll find, like a medicine ball or a block of wood or something I have, and they'll set this course up where they both have to race each other and do it. And, there's a lot of me, I think, in our younger son, because he very much like me. If he doesn't win, it's the end of the world, right? Like, it's like he is just, that's it.
He's
like,
kind of a bully.
I don't know about bully. He's intense, but if he doesn't win, it's like he's going to throw a fit. Like, whereas our older one, I think, is more like my wife in that kind of emotional place. But they're both, I think everybody at some point is going to say, okay, like my kids are this or that or whatever, but I'm excited to see what they do, man.
It's funny because
it's more like I want them to find what they want to do, and then I'm going to help them to go after that, right? Like, that's what I really want to do. I don't want to, like, if they don't want to play sports or whatever, that's fine. But you have to be doing something that you're trying to excel at.
What's funny is Carrie puts these videos out, and it's not on your social media, and it's not staged. They just go set some course up, and you can tell she's in the corner just filming, and they're literally like battling each other, and they have no idea that she's filming them.
Yes, that's what they do. They love that. They love it. So I've got this like medicine balls in this tank. It's like a sled that you push, and they love that. Like, so they'll get in the gym and just push that back and forth. One of them will ride on it, the other one will push, and they just come up with these things, man. But
I got to ask though, what was for breakfast on the menu this morning?
So I had steak and potatoes and eggs.
Was it a lot or?
Not compared to what he used to do.
Okay.
But it's still more than you would eat, probably double what you would eat.
I probably could have ate more, but whatever.
Did you notice now your recognition is like way more popular?
But let me say it beforehand. He was highly upset though.
Why?
They didn't have the pancake.
He wanted a gluten-free pancakes, and they didn't have it. So he was so disappointed.
We're going to yell at Baja.
Yeah, we're going to tell. He was like, "What? I want a pancake."
How strong is your recognition now? I mean, does it seem like it gets more and more every year? For myself, it is also. But
yes. No, I think it's
everywhere you go, right?
Yeah.
Someone say
it's fun, man. Like a lot of people will say, and I'm sure you get the same thing, but it's like at breakfast. It's the most
last night at dinner.
Actually, I walked out of the hotel. There's one guy getting in his truck and just lost his mind this morning
because you're Brian Shaw, right? Yeah.
And then we went to breakfast, and there's people there, so it's just kind of everywhere, which is it's interesting to see the reach, right? Like, and I really genuinely I enjoy meeting people and saying hi to them, but at certain times it can get challenging. Yeah, and it really does, and like I don't think that sometimes people understand. Like it's like you and I walking around to the Olympia, and I'm like, but that's your world, right? Like that's like, okay, I'm walking with Jay, like I get it, man. Like he's gonna get hounded, and
you get hounded just as much.
Yeah, yes, and but at the same time, it's like I think of it again, and this goes back to like when I was much younger, and I actually went. To my first Olympia when you were battling Ronnie, it was fun. And I basically paid almost everything that I had to be there. And you walk around the expo and trying to get samples and, like that kind of thing. But it's like, if you ever, like I thought to myself back then, cause I had a few bad interactions with different people. I don't want to name names, but it's like, they don't really give you the time of day, right? You wait in line and they're not very appreciative or anything. And I just said to myself, like back then, like if I ever get in a position where people want to take a picture with me or have me sign something,
always going to say yes.
I'm always going to.
Cordial, yeah.
Always.
Neither of you two I've never heard you. Usually
I
I'm
said
the one that'll say
bro. I never thought I'd be, I hate to say famous because I hate using that term, but known.
Yes.
Right?
But
you're recognized.
It's insane, man. It's like you could go.
And you can't hide it, right? I mean, it's not like you can walk in places and you just fit in.
See, but you could do a certain, if you put like a hoodie on, but he can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish he would when we go through crowds, just put your head down.
Just go down.
Like,
yeah.
There's just a guy walking.
You know, it's being appreciative of that too.
Of course,
right?
We love it, right?
Yes.
I mean, we love it, but we don't wake up and say I'm who I am, right?
No. It's nice, you know, for me, and I'm sure you get the same thing with Angie. Like, it's like, hey, did you put your dishes in the dishwasher? You know, it's like you could
You're
be
still
whatever.
The same person, right? You're
like,
still expected.
You better
to
clean
chores.
up and I mean, Carrie does that for me quite. You know, she'll say it. It's like everybody's telling you this and that. Like, this is what you need to do at home. You know, and it's nice because like
you're just Brian at home.
This
dude.
is it.
Yeah.
This is
I remember last year when I was setting the Celsius appearances up, and I told them, I said, you guys got to bring Brian in, and they're like, well, will he be recognized? He's not a bodybuilder. I'm like, stop it. I said, yes, he's going to get, because people still, they don't realize that strongman, like we talked about this morning, you were at the Olympia every year with your old sponsors. You're at the Arnold. You're at the Arnold Australia, the Arnold South Africa. Like, you were at all these events with these other bodybuilders.
Sure.
It's a big ecosystem. They're all connected. Just like when Jay comes to the strongest man on earth, he's going to be a spectacle because it's still the same ecosystem.
Yeah, I went to Celsius. You went Friday. I went Saturday, and they were raving about, Brian was here. It was crazy. You know,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
But I got the same people that came up. I lost 100. I lost 150.
It's so
you know,
cool.
before it used to be like, I want to get huge, right? Back 20 years ago,
Yep.
like I just wanted to be big, right? I never thought I'd educate someone on, they take a little piece of what we did and say, oh, I lost this weight. Because everyone seems to be challenging weight now. And it's like, I always ask them the same question. Do you remember the day you decided to make that change? And of course they do. And then I say, what is your confidence like now, looking at yourself in the mirror? And it's just night and day, right?
It's seriously. And the thing is, you could see it too in their face, right? The confidence. And like, I'll go and I've gone and talked to like high schools, and you know, if I get to talk to a sports team or whatever, that type of, like, I know for me how much of a change it was in high school when I actually started working out and started feeling better about myself and started getting in better shape, and this type of thing, like, it just changes your life, you know. For somebody to get to that point where they're so uncomfortable in their own skin, and then to be able to shift it and say, man, I'm proud of myself, and I'm more confident, and I did this. Like, it's life-changing. It is. It's life-changing. And it's neat to, you know, to be able to play even a small role in that. And I think that's just how I feel, is like, I'm really honestly grateful for it, because how many people get the opportunity to do something like that? And then, you know, it's one thing, I guess, in the strongman world or whatever, to be able to give back to the sport and the competitors, but the bigger reach is actually people, like general people. And so the crossover, and this is what you're saying, the crossover is neat for me. And I think I understood that more early on, where it wasn't all about just lifting and just being that. It was like, okay, I'm going to try to cross over. But the thing is like, all these different guys that I get to see, like at the Olympia, I was always a fan of bodybuilding, right? So I got to see Rolly this weekend. I got to see Dexter. You know, I got to see Flex Wheeler. Like, you could just go down the list and say, like, I've seen you now for how many different years, but I'm also
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, Shaq. Yeah. And I've only got to meet him in passing a couple times. I would love to do something with him. But
so on it,
yeah.
So the last 2 years, you've got to hand out an award at the Olympia, which is like a big deal.
Well, it's a first. It is a big deal, because I'm the first strongman that's ever been on the Olympia stage to do that ever.
Yeah.
Like, I take that really seriously. It's a big deal. Like, it's not like, I'm really proud of that, actually. You know, like, it's huge. It's a huge honor,
because that's primarily, it's a past Olympia champions, or a couple of, like a Kai Green or someone who's big, who's done damage on that stage.
Sure.
But you're the only outsider, as far as I can remember, that's ever done
come
this.
in. Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun to go, but again, it's like you're saying, there's so many things that are connected, but it's like a mutual respect, right? And I think sometimes there's competitors that are like, well, you know, I'm maybe in strongman, so I don't like CrossFitters, or I don't like bodybuilders because I do this or what. Like, they almost try to like own their area, and they don't want to cross over and talk. And I've never been that way. It's like, I've done stuff with almost every different, you know.
I saw Carrie beat you in yoga.
Yeah, that was not a strong suit. Yeah. But I'll try it, man. I will try it. And that's the thing, is like, so I've done stuff before with different fighters, or with with guys that were in CrossFit or whatever. Like, and I can respect everybody for what they're doing because I know what it takes to be the best bodybuilder. Okay, I may not have done bodybuilding, but I understand the dedication and sacrifice.
You know what it takes to be the best in the world at what you do.
Yeah. Well, it's not, that's rare air, man.
Of course.
That's rare air.
Who was tougher to fight, Dustin Poirier or Bradley Martin?
I tell you what, well, Dustin, here's the deal, man, is Dustin is super skilled and you could tell that.
Yeah.
And there was a massive weight difference.
Who were you more scared of? Just tell me you
boy.
weren't scared at all.
I don't think I was. I mean, Dustin crawled on my back, and I thought for a second, like, okay, I'll just fall back. And I said, that's a bad idea. I really don't want to hurt him, you know. I wasn't, neither one of the guys I was.
But your adrenaline, dude, you must have been like, okay, I don't want to look bad, right?
But if you had to meet one in a dark alley, which one would you rather fight? Since Bradley always asks people that.
Out of those two. Well, because he asked, I guess it'd be Bradley then, I guess. I don't know, man. He was definitely on it though. The thing is he was on that. Like he must have had that thought pattern already there. Because he was just, you could tell he was just kind of like
he was
getting
ready.
Well, he was working with some guy, I think.
Yes, and he was there too. His coach.
Yeah, the coach.
And I forget his name, but he was there too, and he was kind of talking
tough, right?
about
Yeah.
And I kind of did a little bit with him too, but it was, you know, a lot of it is the balance and athletic ability, and I think that this is where, you know, a lot of people and whatever, if you don't have that, like you might be big and strong, but if you can't move, that's different. So, like, in all fairness, I think Bradley is athletic, man.
Of course.
Like, I think
he is.
I mean,
dude, he's
a super athlete.
He squatted on the hoverboard, the 315 or whatever,
he
which
did
is
all that
crazy.
crazy
He jumped
stuff.
out of the pool.
Yes.
all
He's super
that.
athletic.
Yeah, and like, you know, so that's
But,
not.
but
deniable.
Dustin's not 260.
No, well, if Dustin was 260, that would be pretty scary because his skill level is crazy, man. Like you could just tell, even with as big and heavy as I was, and I didn't know anything at that point at all. You could still tell how he was trying to get an angle and move and that type of thing. But you know, it's also an argument, I guess, for weight classes within MMA. Like, you know, if he's going against somebody else, his skill level is so high that, you know, I can understand that, you know, because it's, and like you're saying, with me, this thing, if it goes through, is an open weight class. So if I walk in with 80, 90, 100 pound advantage, that's a pretty big deal.
I hope I get to see you collab with some of the former current MMA guys for this training at some point. Because I'm sure this will go. Now I'm sure. But whose tape? Do you ever watch anyone's tape for MMA events? Are you watching that at all now, or not? Really?
I have started. I mean,
Okay.
like the heavyweight guys, you know. So, you know, I'm going back and rewatching some older stuff. Like I was watching, like Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir, a couple of those.
I'd like to see you battle with Brock.
That would be fun. I wonder, you know, how that, because he had to cut into 265, so you know, probably what, 290 then, like somewhere.
We wanted to try to get him with Francis just because he's 6'4", he's close, he's approaching 300.
Yeah,
and he's super athletic too.
Seeing his punching power is crazy. Yes, like it. I don't know, man. It's fun. Like you pick up these different things, but there's so many skills within that.
Yeah.
You know, so I was always a student with strongman. I think that's one thing, like for me, like I never got an ego about what I would always take advice, not advice, maybe opinion, right? I'd listen. If you had something to say, I would listen to it. And then I would be able to decipher, well, maybe that makes sense or maybe it doesn't make sense. But I was always reevaluating how I was doing things. And I always kept that mindset. So going into this venture, whatever you want to call it, I'm open to opinion, right? Like, and advice and coaching. Right. So if you tell me something, I can think about it and I execute it. So I can pick things up really, really quickly as long as you say the whys and the hows and how to do it, you know. So, but that's one thing is you have to be coachable. You can't have an ego about what you're doing. And I think that goes for anything, to be fair. But
you know what I think's going to be a strong advantage that he's going to have that no one else is talking about? You have like one of the strongest grips probably ever. And a lot of people you're going against can get out of things, but they've never had somebody who can literally pick up a 300-pound dumbbell with their hands. So if you can get your hands on somebody, I don't care how skilled you are, if someone has that much grip strength, you might not be able to do what you normally do.
There's some different different holds and things that I'm learning that are pretty debilitating if you get them in the right spot.
And then how are they going to get out of your grip if you have them in a hold like that?
It's going to be very hard. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the tools in the shed, right? Like it's interesting, but then you have to have options as well. And this is something I'm learning. I'm like I said, I'm not an expert, man. I'm not good.
You're a rookie.
Yeah. But you learn enough where you have a couple options where it's like, all right, I'm going to work here. I'm going to work there, change this, change that. And so you start to see it. But yes, grip strength. Well, I think strength in general and grip strength, that's not going to be a bad thing to have. Like if you're just flat out stronger than somebody, that's always going to be a good thing in anything that you do when it comes to sports. I think strength is always going to be good to have. So I think that at least what I've been told in talking to a few people, a lot of the MMA fighters, the skill is not the problem. It actually is the fact that they need to get stronger.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big balance though, because how much time do you put into the weight room versus your actual practice? So, and like I said, I've found this, like if you're doing your different, whether it's jiu-jitsu or grappling or whatever, and then you got striking and then you got your conditioning work, all of these things combined, like where do the weights fit into that? And then how hard can you go with weight training and how heavy should you go? That's another thing, right? Because it's, getting within a certain percentage of, I guess, your maximum strength. It doesn't matter how much my deadlift is right now, right? Like I don't need to max out this lift or that lift. Like I need to have the endurance to go for the full round and be able to work hard. So it's an adjustment, man. It's a challenge and it's an adjustment, but you have to learn, just like anything, so it'll be interesting. I mean, we're talking a lot about it, but at the same time, like it has to get locked in.
Yeah.
And so it's more, I guess I'm talking from a learning, but in learning, I've actually gained more knowledge, but more respect as well. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. Like any top level fighter, if they're that skilled, like Dustin, for example, I can't even imagine the amount of repetitions and training to get to that type of level to be that good.
Yeah.
Is crazy.
I mean, it's like your training, man,
Yeah.
Just different field. I mean, we all went through it, right?
Yeah. And then the way they break it down, I would break my list down the same way, and I'm sure they watch film and angles and leverages and all of that, which is, it's fun. Like if you're a student of the game, I think you like that. And it's no different than you. I'm sure that you spent so much time breaking down, well, how do I look and how do I move here and how am I hitting this pose and am I looking the right way or could I do a little bit better? And then when it's time to finally execute, this is the thing, is like high level performers are going to bring it when they need to bring it. And it's all of that practice. So, it's no different with something like this. And we were kind of having this conversation when in a fight, an actual fight will be different for me for sure. But I was saying to, some of my coaches was like, well, there's been a lot of moments in my career where you walk out and the whistle blows and you have to execute and everything's on the line. Right. So being able to manage that type of adrenaline when it's in that environment, I don't know. I can't say for sure. Like when they actually close the door and it's like, okay, now it's go time. But I have to believe that if you've been in enough high level situations where it's that kind of stress and pressure, you can take a deep breath and embrace it better than somebody else that hasn't been necessarily in that type of environment that same way that many times.
It's the Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Hey, look, man, that's true. That's true. And I can't speak knowledgeably about that because it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We're going to find out. When it happens, I'm going to be there.
Well, it's fun, man. It's fun.
Can we get Jay to sit ringside?
Probably.
He's not saying no.
So we'll see when it happens,
Yeah. It's fun, man. It's been a fun progression though. Like I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm going to learn walking away, from strongman. But like I said, I'm grateful for it, and I'm sure that you, I would imagine, feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like for your time and you never. I don't think in life like you don't know necessarily what the future holds, and that's an interesting.
I'm super
thing
involved, and I mean I promote for a contest, so it's like I have that platform to be able to give people just like yourself.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm still I mean, it's still weekend to weekend, dude, and it's busy as hell. You know.
Well, what's neat for me? This is funny. You said the same thing, but like you've been out of it now for what? This is 10 years.
Yeah, 10
right?
years. Yeah, since I competed last.
So to walk into the Olympia, 10 years, and I would say arguably you're the biggest name in that expo, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, up there with some of the greats. I mean, Ronnie. I mean, everyone's it's an opinion, right? But the truth is like we're more popular than ever.
Which is crazy. It's crazy to think that. Like, do you see any of the guys now? I guess it's an interesting, question. Like, do you see any of the guys now getting to that type of level?
That's a great question. I mean, there's some like C-Bum's a social media wizard, right? So I mean, he's definitely got a lot of popularity and the demographic. The thing is, we have generational. Like now, the parents of their kids are following us now. Their parents, I hear that more than ever now. Oh, my dad used to follow you, and now it's the kids, right?
Isn't that crazy? That's
and
cool.
So you talk about like the youth coming, and you were competing with the youth that came to see you. So now it's like that's what I mean. It's generational gaps of me and Ronnie Coleman. I mean, Ronnie's almost 60. I'm 50. So it's like you realize that length of time. You talked about your 20-year on top. I mean, you're talking 30 years for myself now. So that's a wide range, a wide gap. So when anywhere Ronnie and myself go, just because of that rivalry and that time span, where people looked upon bodybuilding as, wow, that was the era.
Yep.
That's where the respect factor goes in, and they respect us more and more as the years go on because they don't witness that in the current crop, right?
Sure.
There's not that. I mean, you had a little bit with Phil and Kai.
Yep.
But those guys, they're active, but they're not probably as active as myself and Ronnie as like that rivalry. You know what I mean?
both of you guys are super active, but it was you were doing.
I was chasing too, right?
Yeah.
And I was the underdog, so I think I get a lot of fans in that response.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? When Jay and Ronnie were at the top, probably 30 to 35, if not 40 weekends a year. Every weekend they were out shaking hands. They were building relationships. They were giving that experience that someone that comes up and said, my parents used to follow you. Their parents stood in line to meet them in person and got that experience. But fast forward to where a lot of the people don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
But they're still at the major expos all over the world. They're still doing it. And that's what I think makes those two special. I mean, even looking over the shoulder, I mean, that's still one of the most iconic posters ever, and it's Jay and Ronnie.
What I can honestly say is I was the most frequent visitor to military bases around the planet.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if anyone toured bases
Not
like
that
myself.
Yep.
That was a big plus. I mean, I grew up in a military background. My stepfather, my brother, my father were all Army. I was spending certain time on the base when I was a kid. So for me, it's a respect factor in that sense. And a lot of those guys find weights as a stress relief, right?
Big time, yeah.
And I think that drew a lot more attention because I was one of the few that spent so much time. And currently, that's what we did up until COVID.
Yeah.
And of course,
we're going to circle back soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you asked me what I would want to do moving forward, the almost number one priority is to get back on those military bases and give back to our service people.
The times that I've been able to do it, it's been incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I love that.
The people get super, like I still remember some of the times we were in the Middle East, Adam, and I had someone pull me aside and say, hey, thanks for not forgetting about us.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
would love to have
you're
go on base with you one time.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. Like we've had conversations with like Chef Rush and a couple other people about getting a group of people together and say, hey, let's go do a week trip, whether it's the Middle East or Asia or even America, wherever.
Sure.
Just go take a group of people that everyone there is gonna truly respect, where each one of them brings a little bit different perspective, but they're still overall in the same family.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah. Really. And again, then it's just giving back. Like you're giving back more. But I would say the same thing. And I think that's the thing overall. And I mean, Matt has seen this, and I know that you're the same way. I mean, these type of meet and greets, right? And I've done a lot of them impromptu, where for example, like you saw me at World's Strongest Man. Like I got done literally right there at the venue. They're breaking down the venue. Everybody else is long gone. Everybody's gone. And it was 5 hours.
Kicked us out.
5 hours or 5 or 6 hours. It's literally getting dark, and you're still there.
He texted me, and he's like, "Brian's still here."
Dude, you know what was different about that one? It was your last one. You knew it, but
it was not planned event.
No, he just walked along the side taking pictures, and there was a tent in the back, and this whole World's Strongest Man stuff was set up. There was one tent in the back, and we set up a table and said, "Hey, come over here." And next thing you know, the line went down the beach, at least 100 meters long, at least.
It was crazy.
And it was there. The sun started coming down to where they broke the entire everything down, and this was the last thing standing. They're like, we have to break it down. And it was like 9:30 at night, and there was still, he sat there. And the next day, you did a separate appearance, and that was the same thing.
Yeah, that one was actually set up. The next day was set up to do that. But it's something I set up on my own just to give back. Yeah. But being willing to do things like that is huge, right? And it's not about what I'm going to get out of it. Although I do get, a lot of people don't realize that I get something out of it because of all these people that come up and share their stories. I take that and use it for me, right? So it's motivation for me to interact with those people. And they don't realize that because they think it's always a one-way street. Well, I'm giving them something or taking a picture or signing something, whatever. But it's not. It's them sharing that with me. Like I try to take good positive energy from that as well and look at it that way. But if you try your best to never disappoint people, especially in that fashion, and you always kind of go a little bit above and beyond, I think it helps to build that recognition. And it's something I've always tried to do. I've always literally, and it goes back to me being a kid and being disappointed a couple times. And I was like, well, I'm going to try to not do that. And then you hold on to that no matter where you get with the success or whatever, you're still humble in that approach. And I think that's why, I would say that's why your maybe notoriety, whatever, has grown more and more and more, because you're always willing to do that, and give back though.
If you got 20 years of positive experiences with people, it grows
but you
forever.
The thing is you won't hear, I learned a lot from Jay because you won't hear something bad about Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything bad.
He was a jerk or no.
No, but also like I would argue, and you could tell me, but I don't think you're going to hear that about me either. No. So it's kind of that goes a long, long way. And so even with, and again, I'm the same way as you. Like you don't necessarily argue for whatever level. That's for other people to debate, like where you're at on the totem pole, right? But if they have that type of experience and you're always giving back and that's your nature, it's only going to be a good thing because now it's positive, right? People have a positive experience and it's like, hey, Jay, this or that, right? Like it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
You know what it is? Yeah. The day is going to come where you're 50 like Jay and you're still going to have people lining up.
Yeah.
And there's people that came in and gone that didn't put that extra effort.
Sure.
That no one's going to even know who they are in their own gym.
Well, then
that's the difference.
Is it only extra effort though?
Yeah. No. I mean, no. It's the body of work, but
sure.
but that giving a shit matters.
Yeah.
It's real, and people know when you care, and they know when it's fake, and they know when it's a stage act because they want something, but they know when it's genuine, and the two of you are genuine with it.
Yeah.
And when you're genuine, you don't have to. Nothing's hidden. It's always going to be like that.
But you keep that. I guess it's keeping that on top of what you're doing. It's keeping that kind of humble base in a way, and like you'll notice it like with the way I notice all the time with the way Jay talks. Like you'll have somebody in here, and I'll listen to other podcasts you guys do or whatever. There's never a sense of and actually, like, we won't talk fully about this, but we were backstage at the Olympia, and it was you and Dexter and Phil, right? and we're having this conversation, and I said, man, this is interesting to just kind of be a fly on the wall, because everybody's like, well, what year would have beat who and whatever, like. And Jay's like kind of sitting back, and it was more Dexter and Phil kind of going at it, and Jay's just kind of back smiling, and I'm like, man, this is interesting. Because your attitude toward that situation was just like, I know what, like, here's my body work, guys. Like, here it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need to necessarily get in this pissing match of, like who's there or not.
But you kind of instigated that though. Because Phil said something you like, Dexter could have been.
No, we talked about it was
15.
2015, so Dexter pushed Phil pretty hard.
Yeah.
And, I brought it up there, in the conversation because, those are my guys, right?
And then you walked off.
And we all won and lost each other, right?
Yeah.
And then Phil, Phil's like, yeah, you were older, whatever at the time.
Yes.
And then, Dexter's like, well, what'd he say?
He said, Jay's 01 would have smoked you.
Yeah. 01 would have smoked you. And then Phil brought up 09 and, he would have smoked everyone. And, that's when I won the title back from Dexter. So it was kind of like, it's great to be able to have these moments with your competition, because if it was the moments and we were actually, and that was like 09, 08 and 01 or whatever, or 2015, we wouldn't be having that fun conversation.
No.
So you're all done.
But Dexter's such a good guy. Phil was great. He was always like, obviously we spent so much time. I spent the most time with him. And I just love to be able to think back now. You see Ronnie Coleman, I posted a picture, he and I, and, when I saw him, and then he reposted it now, and he said, one of the greatest, I don't think he called me the greatest bodybuilder ever. Yeah. Ronnie never would have said that when we were.
Hell no.
Yeah.
But I can now comfortably say, like, this, I look at him as probably one of the greatest ever, if not, not insulting like Lee Haney or Arnold, yeah.
Sure.
Or even Phil, yeah.
But here's the thing. This is what I would say, and I just actually said this to Matt. I think, in my opinion, and I don't know, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 years where it's arguable. So here's the conversation, right? Let's just say, hypothetically, you go from 4 to 6, and he goes from 8 to 6.
Now what?
So now it's 6 to 6, which could have happened. I think it's arguable that could have happened.
01 and 06 could have.
It changes the whole dynamic.
In the end, would have, could have, should have.
Yeah, and again, the outcome is outcome.
But the truth is our fans are respectful to Ronnie. I feel the same. I feel like they're respectful to both guys. No, he's terrible. They realize that we were here, right?
Sure.
And we brought everyone together, right?
Big time. Yeah.
And we were the highlight, we were the pinnacle. And that's all we can ever ask for. That's all you have your competition guys, right?
Yeah.
You and Thor and all these guys, Eddie.
It was mainly Zadrunas.
Yeah.
So you have that, but you have a rival that brings you up, and that's, I think, in a lot of ways, like that era. You talk about the eras of different sports, and it's, I think that's what's so interesting, man, is like the era you talk about it, like who would have done what, and like Sean was on here and saying like, hey, well, like our top 10, like it would have, pretty much crushed the top 10 here, right?
Very
and
controversial.
Yeah. No, it is. I
said, oh shoot, this is like, and of course he makes it into a reel,
Yeah, throwing it out, which I don't know, 250,000 views. Obviously, that's like a.
He also
big
said
thing.
Seabum would win the Mr. Olympia in the open class when we just had a new champion.
So let me ask you, if
you gave the award to Seabum, right?
No, second place.
Okay.
If Adrunas wasn't there, was he one of the catalysts that pushed you because you saw his success before you, or you said, was he the person that pushed you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
How many Arnolds did he win?
So he won 8 total. 8 total.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, and again, this is 6 before I was there. He won 6 in a row, which is incredible. And then
he won Hummer trucks and all that, right?
Yeah, I think they were giving away.
I know Mark Henry won the first one. 02 was the first year we got it. Mark Henry won the first.
Yeah. So it's, and again, like that's a whole different.
He lived in Lithuania, that guy, right?
Yep.
And they were trying to figure out how they were going to ship the truck there.
Get it there.
Yeah.
So it's all. There's a lot.
There's always backstory.
Yeah, we don't need to go into all that, but it's it's like having that rival's good, right? And he would say the same thing about me. And, obviously with him being in Lithuania, like we haven't, at some point, I think we'll have the conversation, like be able to sit down and kind of talk about it, which will be fun. But, it's having that rival, but it's, you're going back and forth in this battle where it's like 1 and 2, 2 and 1, and that's basically what happened for us. And so it was a driving force where I was not, in all fairness, for a lot of years, I was not worried about anybody else. right? Like, it was like, what is he doing? How am I, like, so, the competition would happen. And if I got first, it was like, how far did he fall down in this event? And I don't care if somebody else got second. It was like, where is he at? Because I know at the end, that's going to be the battle. It's going to be 1 and 2, Yeah. So that was definitely, but it's a driving force, man. And it's arguable. Like, without me, how many does he have? Or without him, how many do I have? Right? And that could have been crazy.
It's barbershop talk.
It is. And I think that naturally, that level rises and everybody kind of has to step up to keep up, and that's a debate that will go on and on and on from eras of any sport, right? So, you could talk about the eras of strongman, and, I was having actually, Hofthor, we did a little mobile podcast with him that we'll have coming out, but we were kind of talking about some of the numbers that guys are lifting, and the deadlift specifically at the Arnold that they did this last year, right? Because the winner ended up with around 980 pounds on that bar, but back in 2019, Hofthor and I were in a big battle with that. Like, we were really, really neck and neck, and I opened with 980. And then my second lift was 1,021. And then my last lift, he pulled 1,046, really good lift. And then I went for a 1051, which would have beat him. And then I that's when I tore my hamstring. But that was the type of level. And you had 4 guys, I think, above 1,000 pounds in that contest. And now
no one
all of the guys, and also they allowed them to wear the suits, or at least a brief, not a full suit, but a brief on the bottom, which is a different lift because it's supportive gear, right? So I was saying to Hofthor with him, because now he's trying to come back into strongman and compete. And I said, well, look, man, I don't think you need to get to the level of strength that you were at, like when we were going back and forth with that deadlift. I think that you could potentially get much, around, let's just say your top end is 1,000 pounds, and he was battling at that point, like at least to try, and then he ended up pulling or deadlifting 1,100. But, it's like, I don't think you have to get to that level. Because the guys, like, you could pull 1,000 and win that, and that may not be a top level lift,
which gives him more energy going into the next.
Yeah, but you had these, like, with myself and Zadrunas and a few of those guys, like, the level of strength was crazy, and the weights were also, they just kept bumping the weights up. So, like, you'd walk into these contests and the weights were crazy, But it's an interesting debate, like, within the sport of strongman. Like, the weights went down to a certain extent in certain exercises. Obviously, if you have a max lift, which is why that's comparing apples to apples, because it's the same bar, same setup of weights, and the weights are different. But the guys were even allowed to wear a brief this year, and the weights were still lower. So, it's an interesting one, but you could only really compare that with the same type of lift, So, I don't know if the level is, is it different, or is the nature of the events changed a little bit, where it's kind of gone more like you were saying earlier with the speed stuff, a little bit more
evolution of it. Doesn't matter what sport it is. There's always an evolution. That's why it's so hard to always say who's the GOAT, because every 5 to 10 years, it just seems like it changes. And there's kind of a GOAT per era.
Yeah. Well, do you think in bodybuilding you're going to see somebody else come in and win 4, 5, 6 in a row?
My opinion, no.
Not?
No. I could. That's just my opinion. The reason I say that is back when him and Ronnie were going at it, there was one division for men. Yeah. All the talent went there. Sure. Now there are other avenues. So a guy who is a classic guy, like a C-Bummer, maybe a guy's in men's physique, that if he trained like they did, he might have been able to be that guy. I just don't think anyone's is gonna do that. But then again, anything's possible. Yeah. It definitely could happen.
It's an interesting one, because in strongman, I mean, Zadrunas and I, from 2009 to 2016, we were the only 2 guys that won. It went back and forth kind of. Yeah. And then from that point on, you've had a different winner in 2017, different winner in 2018, different winner in 2019, different winner in 2020, different winner in 21 and 22 back to back, and then a different winner in 23.
Look what you just said right there. Look at bodybuilding. When Phil left, Sean, Brandon, Rami, Hadi, Derek. Only one person won 2. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1.
That's the same. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, like, how that happens, like that shift, because you, Like we're almost, it's crazy. Like you have a couple guys that are kind of above the pack in a way.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, well, this guy steps up but there's nobody that's like lights out. It's game over. You know, everybody's chasing that one person. I mean, maybe we'll see what Derek.
We'll see what happens. I mean, Derek's young enough and he's got the physique. So Derek, I would assume he has a chance to go on a run. But, you know, there's a lot of other guys coming up that are really, really good. So he's going to have his hands full. Could he win multiple? For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
He's got the potential, man. I
think he just turned 30.
It's interesting to see the guys bump up from the 212.
Yeah, think about if he wasted time there. I mean, think about Regan Grimes, who wasted time going to Classic, thinking he went back to Classic. And I mean,
we were just talking
he lost
about
2 years
he
on that.
took a couple years. You know, it took a while to get that density back.
Yeah.
You know?
2 years.
What do you think of Regan?
I think he has all the potential in the world. If I had Regan, I'd lock him in a house and make sure he stayed on. I'd make him Mr. Olympia within a 2-year reign, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting. Now the question is, are the distractions of the current, whatever you want to call it, social media world, do you think that takes away from guys' focus?
Yeah.
100%.
Like, you know,
for sure.
Are you able to lock in as well? Right? Like, or
you can't. If you bring a phone in the gym, you can't lock.
Yeah. And see, this is a rule. Like back when I was battling hard
phones.
there, I literally said the guys that came in, you can't bring your phone in.
Yeah, I said the same.
And I
thing.
would get so pissed at them if they would pick their phone up during.
If I heard it
training,
ring, it would. If I
drive
heard
you
a
nuts.
phone ringing, I would lose my.
Yeah.
I would lose my.
We'd
shit.
come in and shut
You
the door.
wouldn't even put it. You'd leave it in your vehicle.
I told everyone. I said, you cannot train with me if you have a cell phone. Do not bring a cell phone.
See, that's
in.
interesting.
And now what happens is a guy does a set, and what is he doing? He's picking up his phone. Well, let me film this one next. Let me do that because
I know, but
then
you're messing up your mental side, but then you're messing up your rest as well, and you're distracted. You're not as focused.
Yeah.
So it's arguable, but it's like I used to say for myself, if I could lock myself in the gym with just close the doors, close the windows, whatever, nobody can see anything, and just go in there and get to work. Like I would rather show up to a contest. People don't know what I'm bringing, how I look, how big I am, how strong I am, whatever. And then when the whistle blows, you find out at the contest. Like that's more of an old school mentality, but
I mean, you're locked in for this podcast, right? The first thing you finish when you sign off, you're going to look at your phone and say, "Okay, what did I miss on the phone?" Think about that.
But think about what you said though. Someone like the younger generation now, they don't know what it's like to not have the phone.
Yeah.
As they got there, it's been a part of their life.
We didn't have text messaging back then either. You know what I mean?
No. And to them, they're thinking this is all they know. So they're thinking, what difference does it make if I shoot a text in between? I can still lift the weight. Because they don't know what it's like to say there is no phone. It's not that you left your phone in the car. There was no cell phones.
No.
There was no way. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, if you're at the gym, they'd have to call the front desk. And it better be life or death or a child being born or
something.
You're going to have hell to pay.
Yeah.
You know?
It's do you think that's in any way contributed to the the maybe packages that we're seeing like at the Olympia? You know, do you think it's that big of a deal, or is it?
No. I think it's I think it's a lot of things. I think it's too much information. I think that we're talking about time swings. It's just calculation. You know, I just feel like there's you can have information overload, and what it's confusing because like we had protocol back in our era, like we never even discussed it with each other. Now it's literally discussed through social media, right?
Open.
So you start to question, am I doing this right? And we didn't necessarily have like optional coaches, right?
Sure.
Everyone's an expert. So when everyone's an expert, like it's just natural instinct to be like, I want, like you think that in your head. Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't know if I believe it, but wow, that guy looked pretty good that he.
Sure.
It's a circumstance, right?
And you coming from even in the strongman, and I'm sure you hear people talking about things they do, and you look at it and you're thinking, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the norm now because someone with a phone on a message board or on whatever said, I heard so-and-so does this.
Yeah.
And they think, well, if that guy's better than me, he must be doing more than me. Otherwise, he can't be better than me.
Well, it's staying in your lane, man. Like that's the thing, and I think that's what I would say is even when you post something, right, or say something online, does it really matter what everybody's feedback is. Like, let's just say Regan, for example, right? He posts a picture of a physique update or something, or training. Should it affect Regan at all what the comments say about him, right? Or is it like, hey, I'm in my lane, I know where I'm at within my prep, and I know what I'm bringing, or my end goal, right? Like, are you going to let that affect you mentally, right? And I would actually, like, people don't realize this, but a lot of times what I would post when I was posting training leading up to a contest, I wouldn't even post my heaviest stuff sometimes.
I wouldn't either.
Right? I didn't. It was just like, well, here's me training. But then people would comment and say, well, that's all you're lifting, whatever. Well, you don't know if that was my second set or my seventh set where I was still going up and up and up. Like, it was like, but they would take so much like, oh, well, that is definitely the best that you could do and whatever. And it's like, you don't even know what level.
No idea.
Yeah. But it's all this. So, and a lot of it was meant to distract guys, because I knew that the guys I was competing against would watch it. And I would say, well, here's this. And it's like, well, maybe Brian's only at that, right? But it was all this game of strategy. And I took it that way because that was a battlefield too, right? But you're not getting to see necessarily my best stuff, you know? So with these guys, the younger guys now, I don't know if they've got that thicker skin to say it doesn't matter.
Well, that's part of locking Regan in a house and just not letting him have a phone, you know?
Sure. And he could, I mean, I feel like he looked great, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
He's
that
moving
top
up.
10.
He's moving up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
like
think
we
there's
said,
a
if he
lot of
wouldn't have took
potential.
those 2 years of classic, who knows where he'd be now?
Yeah.
Same thing if Derek if he would have went straight to the Open,
Yeah.
he could have won 2 years ago.
It's an interesting one, man. It's an interesting
But
one.
it's all yesterday, so all you can do is it's over.
Well, you move forward. You got to look forward. Got to look forward. Yeah.
Well,
That's awesome.
Well, listen, we appreciate you coming on, man. Look forward to doing, I know we have a couple more things that we're doing to kind of collaborating together. I look forward to coming next year to the Shar event.
Yeah,
we're also going to be together in Nashville. By
Yes.
the way.
Yeah. June, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. June
Chris,
8th.
I know you just booked
Love
that,
it.
so he was super excited. He asked me last year, and I know he just told me about the news. So we'll see you at the Nashville Expo.
Yeah, man. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah. I feel like this was a good conversation, man. It was great. Like, you know, coming back on and just, you know, I'm in a different spot, like you said. But
2 years to the date.
2 years. How ironic is that?
I know. I was just sitting
He
there.
just
and I was
looked it up, and he told me.
I looked up the other night and went, "Oh my god!" I said, "He was on 2 years," and I looked and went, "It's no what
That
what?
went by
wasn't
quick.
planned."
That went by quick, man. It really did.
And then we did, and yours, like I said, see him and Phil have a battle going on. They don't know which one hits a million first because they're about 10,000 apart, and they're both going to cross that million here. So we'll see if Brian has enough push to hit a million first.
I mean, if anybody's listening to this and they want to just jump down and
watch the other one,
click, maybe leave
comments
a comment,
and likes, and have your
I'll
friends
make
sign
sure
on.
I'll make sure to link the old one. So
Yeah.
if you want to watch Brian's first one, to get him over there.
hey, that's all right.
But if Phil hears this, maybe he'll push. Then
You know,
It's
if
a
there's a-
it's
if
a
there's a-
Colorado thing, bro.
if there's
you
a
know?
battle, then we need to.
We'll see. We'll see if James puts it in the communities.
Yeah.
Then it'll really hit it quick.
All right, thanks so much, bro. We appreciate you.
100%. Thank you, guys.